Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Kodani Chai Jaya Maya Ko Sachi Jaya Kodani Chai Jaya Maya Ko Sachi Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai, Kanjra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. We're reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. The park behind the art museum was crowded with people waiting. Srila Prabhupada took his seat on stage and began lecturing over the public address system. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I wish to thank you, the inhabitants of this great city, Philadelphia. You are so kind and enthusiastic in taking part in this movement, so I'm very obliged to you. I'm especially obliged to American boys and girls who are helping me so much in spreading this Krishna consciousness movement in the Western countries. Prabhupada explained how all living entities are eternal, but having taken material bodies, are subject to the tribulations of birth, death, disease, and old age. In the human form, the soul can choose to go back to the spiritual world or to suffer birth after birth in the material world. But why should we remain in this material body and undergo repetition, change of body? Prabhupada asked, let us have our original spiritual body. This is wanted. That is intelligent. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, entitled The Lord's Rishabhdeva's Teachings, Text 31. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's a prose. I'm making an attempt. Atisukumara Karakacharanara Stala Vipula Bhavas Sankala Vadanatya Vavayava Vinasa Prakriti Sundara Swabhava Hasapsuluko Navanalina Dalayam Mana Sichira Tararunayata Nayana Ruchira Satrisha Subhaga Kapula Karna Kanta Nasabikutam Snitavadana Mahotsavena Pura Vanitanam Manasi Kusamad Sarasanam Upadatanam Padadanam Parak Avalamban Avalambamana Kutila Jatila Kapisha Keshaburi Baro Vaduta Malina Nicha Sarile Nagraha Krihita Iva Trishata. Translation. Lord Rishabhadev's hands, feet, and chest were very long. His shoulders, face, and limbs were all very delicate and symmetrically proportioned. His mouth was beautifully decorated with his natural smile, and he appeared all the more lovely with his reddish eyes spread wide like the petals of a newly grown lotus flower, covered with dew in the early morning. The irises of his eyes were so pleasing that they removed all the troubles of everyone who saw him. His forehead, ears, neck, nose, and all his other features were very beautiful. His gentle smile always made his face beautiful, so much so that he even attracted the hearts of married women. It was as though they had been pierced by arrows of Cupid. About his head was an abundance of curly, matted brown hair. His hair was disheveled because his body was dirty and not taken care of. He appeared as if he were haunted by ghosts. By ghost. Let me repeat the translation. Lord Srisavadev's hands, feet, and chest were very long. His shoulders, face, and limbs were all very delicate and symmetrically proportioned. His mouth was beautifully decorated with his natural smile, and he appeared all the more lovely with his reddish eyes, spread wide like the petals of a newly grown lotus flower, covered with dew in the early morning. The irises of his eyes were so pleasing that they removed all the troubles of everyone who saw him. His forehead, ears, neck, nose, and all other features were very beautiful. His gentle smile always made his face beautiful, so much so that he even attracted the hearts of married women. It was as though they had been pierced by arrows of Cupid. About his head was an abundance of curly, matted brown hair. His hair was disheveled because his body was dirty and not taken care of. He appeared as if he were haunted by a ghost. Purport. Although Lord Rishabhadev's body was very much neglected, his transcendental features were so attractive that even married women were attracted to him. His beauty and dirtiness combined to make his beautiful body appear as though it were haunted by a ghost. Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Hakam Karuti Vachanam Bangam Yankai Tekarim Yat Kripa Tavam Bande Shri Gurum Dinitanam Vajakalpati Vishchan Kripa Sindhu Vachan Patitanam Pavani Guru Vaishnavi Pyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadha Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you for giving this opportunity to say something. It's really nice preparing for the verse, which here is showing the power of Lord Rishabhadev's beauty, of his lovely form. And you can imagine how Prabhupada was in great ecstasy in writing this. And such is the the meditation of advanced devotees, the Lord's name, form, pastimes, and activities. So, however the Lord, even if he's so-called dirty, then it doesn't stop his beauty coming, shining through. So in sadhana bhakti, where we practice employing our senses in the service of the Lord. So in this way, by reading about the Lord's form, for example, then our eyes can be like cups, drinking the nectar of every detail of his body, as we do before going to see the deities. We observe their form and try and drink in the nectar of their beauty, how beautifully dressed they are with such devotion, and in this way our hearts are purified also. And when we hear the name and glories of the Lord, our ears are like cups to drink the nectar of them. And similarly, we relish prasadam by our taste and touch the Lord's body. Flowers are offered to the Lord. We can, well, not so much now, smell the fragrance, but there's the incense of the Lord offered to him, and so on. So the gopis, they were expert in this absorption of the Lord and his pastimes, activities, his form, to be out of contact with that was like having withdrawal symptoms for them. They'd be so afflicted by transcendental distress and longing. And so if he was absent, then they would increase the remembrance of the Lord, discussing his pastimes and activities. And this would give them so much satisfaction that when Krishna was personally present, they were indifferent to him. They were, so. And like they would, they complained to Lord Brahma for having eyelids, because it would interrupt their vision of the Lord. And similarly, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, even when Krishna was when Krishna left, then they became immersed in an ocean of bhava, just remember him being present in their minds and hearts. So there's so much potency there in this remembering. And as I was saying, Prabhupada must have been in great ecstasy, reciting, writing down these pastimes. They say these are Prabhupada's ecstasies, Srimad Bhagavatam, and the books he wrote, he translated, and his commentaries. So, but as it says in the Shikshastakam, we're so unfortunate that we have no attraction for them. So that can be taken in two ways. But everything is so attractive by the Lord that, including his Maya, his material energy, we spent so many lifetimes being attracted by the glitter of material energy, birth after birth. And like it said how when Arjuna, so it was when Krishna brought Arjuna before the two armies, he started to smile because he could see how he was appreciating how great his material energy was, and seeing Arjuna becoming perplexed by seeing all his relatives and friends and teachers and so on. This was the influence of the material energy upon him. So it said how he was smiling because at the greatness of his own material energy. So in this way, everyone is on his path in all respects. And so most of us are on the most living beings are on the under the modes of material nature, and the body that's a combination of those modes. And so Krishna says, what is night for all beings is a time of awakening for the self-controlled, and a time of awakening for all beings is night for the introspective sage. So the plural is all beings, and the singular is the one introspective sage. So this is how rare such a sage is. So there's one devotee said to Prabhupada, sometimes I fall into Maya, and Prabhupada said, you're always in Maya, sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. So this is our predicament. So, but Prabhupada, he's freely given this Krishna consciousness in the form of his books and association, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And he gave it freely, and he paid the price with his perseverance and so many austerities and inconveniences that we can't imagine really being in such an advanced stage, traveling to a place where no other Indian sage would go, and what it took to create this movement. But we may not be fully Krishna conscious, but we have to at least see the value of it, so that see the value, because it's like being handed a diamond, the best of all jewels. So the best of all liberation is going back home, back to Godhead, and this is what Prabhupada has handed to us. So what are we going to do with it? And we could be like, I say, don't cast pearls before swine. So are we going to throw it away, or be like Dhruva, who understood the value of it and was able to reject the broken glass? So, because can be so afflicted by the material energy, we need support of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. And so, because at a certain stage, if we don't have that support, then we may become impatient and throw this diamond away, and start listening to our minds, and may become negative or insecure, or the other side could be just caught up in our own world and thinking ourselves great and getting so many results, so much facility, so much name, fame, adoration, and gain. and or just plodding along. But Prabhupada says that devotional service isn't sentimental or imaginative ecstasy. So Krishna is a place where Krishna is always in the center. Otherwise, we can act in a disconnected way. So being conscious of Krishna is we're trying to cultivate as our source of satisfaction in everything we do, in our minds, our words, and our deeds. So, in employing our senses in the service of the Lord, by increasing the quality of our practices, then naturally our attraction will increase for the Lord as well. And the result of that is that there's detachment from the subtle and gross material energy, and tolerance of material misery and distress, which results in equal vision of all living entities, and seeing oneself as one of them also. Like the only difference between us and everyone else is that it's Srila Prabhupada's books. And so therefore we feel want to be able to share this diamond, not keep these diamonds to ourselves, but share them, because they're unlimited in nature. So in this way, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle Brahmin, a cow, and an elephant, a dog, and a dog-eater. Vidya Vinaya Sampane, Brahmani Gavi Tastini, Shuni Chaiva Swapake Cha, Pandita Samadashina. So, with this equal vision and true knowledge, one sees every living entity as part and parcel of Krishna, and how everything with the super salt in everyone's heart, he says everything is Krishna's arrangement completely. So it's not by, so therefore he has humility, which is the first prerequisite for knowledge. So he thinks it's not by chance he's in association that he finds himself. That everyone has a unique relationship with the Lord, and to cooperate with the Lord and the spiritual master, he inquires how he can be of assistance. And every encounter, we see how, well, what's Krishna trying to teach me here? Every situation that we come across, there's a lesson to be learned. There's a listening to one lady, devotee. She's very well qualified in the psychiatric field. She does regular podcasts and broadcasts with BBC and so on. She's got 200 million listeners. And she says how every emotion that we have is a nugget of information. It's there to tell us something. So how introspective we must be to be able to take advantage of what Krishna's trying to tell us in the Lord in the Heart is saying how he's trying to give us direction all the time, but we're not tuned in properly. So there's so much interference with the influence of the material energy in different ways. So we, by chanting the holy name, praying to the Lord for that attraction, and then we come to the point where we're not attracted because we feel that there's so much to the Lord. He's unlimited in his attraction, so how much can I take in? And then in this way, the advanced devotees think that they've no attraction for the Lord. So the best energy source is a selfless spirit of devotion and enthusiasm with confidence. As Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna will help you. So any comments on questions?
You mentioned introspection, and can you be too introspective? And if so, then what would be the negative result of being too introspective?
Negative result. Well, I'm not seeing it in relationship with Krishna. Not taking shelter of the guidance of Guru Sadhu Shastra.
So what would be the balance then of being adequately introspective? And because it seems like sometimes if people are too introspective, then it can be damaging for their self-esteem and it may cripple them in their attempts to perform devotional service. So how would you balance that introspection? How would you know that what your introspection is actually nourishing?
Well, they have to be able to reveal their mind in confidence or be in association with someone who can guide them through their introspection in such a way that leaves them enlightened, or it switches on a light for them so that they can see things better. So if it goes to, so there can be, if it can go into the realms of too much introspection where they need professional help. So that's there also. But it needs someone who's with them all the way. That they've got to guard against that negativity, and they're in more need of association. And so that there's so many devotees who have had a friend in their association that's been always encouraging them. You can do better than this. They're not seeing anything like them anything less than them. So a Krishna that's capable of doing so much. It's just a matter of finding what enthuses them that they can continue. Because everybody has an innate ability to do something, and everyone has a talent of some kind. So it's a matter of finding that and in association with those who can give the time to encourage them along that way, which may take a few days or may take any number of years depending on circumstances.
So you see that proper introspection is manifest in the ability to be more humble and more enthusiastic in your service, and too much introspection would mean that you become unenthused to do service. That would be a way to see it also.
But one needs something to it's a long haul, so one needs something, and somebody has said how we to be able to succeed in Krishna consciousness without the association of devotees is hallucination. So it's a hallucination to think that someone can go forward without the association of devotees. So, for example, someone may can repeatedly fall down, but the devotee is always there to pick them up and dust them off and help them to keep continuing. And there's so many devotees that are grateful for such devotees because they know they wouldn't have been able to make it without them. We've got devotees that we can take shelter of that give us enthusiasm. So to maintain contact with those devotees, or give, if it's not, sometimes it's not ourselves, so to give the opportunity to take association of others that may be more qualified with that, dealing with that kind of the mentality of that individual.
So it seems like introspection is it's a lifelong practice. So, like you're saying, is in order to keep that enthusiasm up, then we have to keep association with people who we can trust, who will keep us enthused. It's association with devotees, because if we just are introspective, then we may become introverted. But as a preaching movement, then we have to rise above being introverted or being shy, like that. Sometimes we have to step out for Krishna.
Yes. So, but if the person, like, but then you have to see the background of the individual as well. Because it may not happen just like that, especially if it's, a person is prone to be that way. So it may take a lot of endeavor and sacrifice on the association that devotees is in to bring them up to take them above that, bring their head above the water, so to speak. Because they're so prone or have that habit, have certain habits or conditionings that put us into different spaces quite regularly. So it's a lifelong endeavour to rise above that by the support of Guru Sadhu and Sastra.
And it seems like another healthy aspect of introspection is the tendency to criticise others less, because if you're looking at yourself, how to improve, which is self-realisation, then you won't be concerned with bothering yourself with other people's faults.
Yeah, that's very true. But there's also there's a necessity also to be, we can't, that's very much there. And it's something that will lead us to offences and so on, like this that can cripple us in our spiritual life. But also, we have to also see that there is a necessity for criticism for protection of devotees, or protection of the preaching, and like that, because if you see someone's heading, so heading for something that's going to be damaging to them, then we don't remain silent. It's be violent. It's Prabhupada says it's violence not to say anything in that regard. So it has to be,
So in that regard, then, there are three things. If you have to say something, like to say if someone's going to walking down the street, and they're about to walk down a manhole, you might run over and push them out the road, and they might get disturbed that you pushed them, but then they see that you saved them from falling to in a dangerous situation. But so it's not necessarily that, and so that might seem to be quite a shock to get dealt with in such a way. So it's surely obviously when we're having to instruct other people because we see something which is going to harm them, we feel it's our duty, or we feel that out of respect for that person or affection for that person, then we want to say something so they don't go down the road. And surely there's some guidelines about that, otherwise people may just be rough with each other all the time. So what are those guidelines?
Am I the right person? Another is it the right time? And there's a third one, right time. Motivation, yeah. Because our motivation can get our motivation can get in the way, or or the chemistry between us and the other individual may get in the way, or the circumstances may be not appropriate. So whatever you say, it has a negative effect. So these are the 3 guidelines, because it says how, for example, if we're just saying something because we're agitated or that the person's not advancing as fast as we want them to, then they can pick up on that. Because it's not so much what we know. We know something, so we want to try and tell them what we know so that they'll be able to progress. But the other side of it is how much we care. So if we don't have that caring mood, then they'll just pick up on the agitation, and so the words won't get through, because to their mind and senses that's the most prominent thing. Or it says how in any interaction, then the subtle messages, the subtle messages of body language and maybe tone may not match our words. So these things we have to consider.
Yeah, I think that's good. It also relates to introspection as well, because you've got to consider if you're going to instruct someone, direct them, you've got to be a bit introspective as to what your motivation is. And then if your motivation is wrong, it doesn't mean to say that you don't instruct a person, it means you have to change your motivation. Then you have to think, okay, is it truthful, pleasing and beneficial? So these are the other 3 things as well, if it's according to Shastra. So, okay, it's truthful, we have to put it in a pleasing way, and it has to be beneficial. If it's truthful, we put it in nice words, but the intention is, or the motivation is still that they're just annoying us or something like that. Then we're just going to transfer that annoyance back to them, and then they'll just think, well, this just seems like nice words, but I don't really accept it. So yeah, it seems that introspection is very important with that as well.
Because this, for example, if someone's asleep, you can give them a shove, or you can snap your fingers, or you can all these kind of things. But if it's still not working, then it's madness to continue. But trying, with humility, we can even inquire. This seems to be a difficulty for you. Can I be of some assistance? Or is there something, is there some ailment, or is you eating too? Or maybe you might take offense if you ask them if they're eating too much. But just somehow to inquire, and the easiest way is to, in general, be their friend, that they know you, that they know over time they trust your motivation is correct.
That's true, because even if the motivation is good, but it's approached in a clumsy way, and even if you make a bit of a mess of it, if your motivation is good, then you can always amend it somehow.
Yeah.
If the person knows your motivation is good.
Yeah. And if there's a regular interaction with the devotees, because it said how one should be trying to be friends with everybody so that they've got more choice, every individual of the community to try and be friends with everybody so that everybody has a choice of who they can confide in or seek help from, because association is so important.
Yeah, another thing about the verse was mentioned that Rishabdev, his hands were long, his feet were long, and his chest was long. It's interesting that those those parts were mentioned as being typically of good form. And it's interesting because if you see someone who has really small hands, then like there's one famous politician who's got very small hands, and they just make fun of the person. And in the same sense, or another sense, is that if you have hands like shovels, as they say, or feet, big banana feet, they used to call it. So it seems like that beauty is not simply in the eye of the beholder, but there is actually certain intrinsic hallmarks of beauty.
There's hallmarks of beauty in an incarnation of the Lord or Satyavesha avatar, but also there's, like if one's spiritually advanced, they can be in a deformed body, but still they're because they're spiritually so vibrant to the point where their body is non-different than spirit. So they have a different sort of beauty in the sense that just shines through and immediately attractive. People can tell such a person in a crowd. That Prabhupada says when devotees are with neck beads, shaven heads, tilak, and so on, then they just look like they just come from Vaikuntha. So, the more the devotee is decorated with these qualities of mercifulness, friendliness, compassion, these 26 qualities of a devotee, then he's immediately attractive and can it kind of wins. He can, like said of Narada Muni, he can enter the hearts of any living being because his compassion takes in all of the universe to try and deliver this conditioned souls. So, like that, illiterate Brahmin, he was used to people making fun of him because he couldn't read, but he was determined to follow his spiritual master's instructions. He couldn't produce any results in a material sense or in an external sense, but when Lord Chaitanya approached him, he could sense that he wasn't someone else who was about to come and make fun or give some ridicule, so he revealed his heart. And so that's a kind of example of lack of motivation, just the motivation for the person's welfare at heart. And because the devotee, he didn't have any other motivation than just to please his spiritual master and try to read. So by his endeavor, the result was there that he could just simply appreciate how kind the Lord is, that he was, how magnanimous he was, that he was willing to be the servant of his devotee, Arjuna. So similarly, the devotees may not immediately manifest the results of their practices in the form of some advancement and maybe even enthusiasm. Well, always enthusiasm should be there. But maybe because there's a background of negativity and maybe analysis, for example, but because they keep trying, Krishna within the heart sees their surrender, and in this way, the fruit may be there. It may be Krishna's just withholding the fruit. He wants that individual to go through something that's going to make him eligible to receive something greater. So it's within Krishna's hands that we're just the instruments or the servants. So, just to keep inspiring, to become sources of as much source of inspiration ourselves. Because it's saying that we need to work on ourselves more than, and how we can assist and be better instruments in assisting others. So, is there any comments?
Prabhupada also mentioned that a woman's beauty is in her chastity. So it's not necessarily just the physical beauty, like you said, even if one has, like in the Nectar of Instruction says, one has a diseased or infirm body, that if one is a devotee and they're developing these qualities of devotee, and they become attractive because of that spiritual purity. People automatically, even sometimes you're on the street doing Sankirtan, and if people are in distress, they automatically come to you. They don't know why, but they're just being attracted because they feel that they can trust it somehow or another. And they don't even they sometimes say, I don't know what it is about you, but there's just there's something in you. You just say, well, it's because I chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. So you take the opportunity to try to get them to chant as well. Now, on the other hand, you can see sometimes people are very physically, they have good features, but their character is very undesirable. Even the demons, they actually, mentioned in the Shastra, they didn't all look like gargoyles. Some of them were very powerful and handsome personalities.
Well, we're all coming from that background, so after lifetimes of sometimes being in demons, sometimes being in demigod, then we've got a lot to work on ourselves. So but we just shouldn't get so negative to the point that we don't feel we can't be good association for others, and because we shouldn't think that we're lower than we are, or not neglect the gifts that Krishna's given us with too much negativity and not being there for others, and also not to be too thinking we're higher than we are in our advancement, and to this having illusions of grandeur.
So there's another point I'm going to make related to that. I'll just finish with that because it's getting on. But I can't remember if it was Garuda Purana or Vishnu Purana or another scripture, but it mentions various types of characteristics one has according to what they've done in their past life. So one may be, they have this type of feature or that type of feature or that type of anomaly or deformity based on what they did in their last life. But it seems like it's not something that in Kali Yuga devotees should be looking at and thinking, okay, this devotee's got a big nose, they must have been a liar in their last life, like Pinocchio, just exaggerating. So it seems like certainly it's very, I've seen devotees get in big trouble because of referring to these scriptures and referring to someone's disability. So it seems like it's very important that we take seriously that verse of not judging a devotee by the externals, especially in Kali Yuga, because everyone in Kali Yuga has got some kind of imperfection, and there's no knowing as to whether, Krishna says the intricacies of action are very difficult to understand. So whether one has some apparent material good situation or apparent not so good situation, then it shouldn't have any bearing on how we see a devotee, should it?
Well, it's offensive to see the devotee according to their past. They've received Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So who are we to judge? We're trying to put ourselves above Lord Chaitanya. And the Supreme Lord, so Rupa Goswami. I'll just end with reading the verse from Nectar Devotion, instruction rather. Being situated in his original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. So, they're trying to make themselves out to know something by doing this, but in fact they're kind of digging their grave in one sense over fatal offences. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee as having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam and mud. The Ganges waters do not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So similarly, those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will take association of these devotees without considering what their condition is, whatever their gender, colour, deformity, lack of deformity, like this. So, Vaishnava Seva Vaishnava Sangha Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Swami Vrinda Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki.
Jai.